Story recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a sci-fi film called Push. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. As a young boy, Nick Gant has been told by his father to help a girl who will give him a flower in the future. His father, who can control things telekinetically, has been on the run from Division. The shadowy organization has been set up after World War II to track down humans with extraordinary abilities so that they could use their power for military purposes. His father explains that helping the girl would also help other people like them. As operatives from Division arrive at the hotel, his father advises him against making any decisions that can be tracked by watchers, who are capable of seeing the future. Before the team could raid the room, his father shoves him telekinetically to another room to hide him. Henry Carver, who's leading the team, arrives and signals the operatives to go ahead with the raid. Nick hides in another room and watches the assault. Not long after the team enters the hotel room, he hears multiple gunshots and witnesses two operatives, one disguised as a maid, thrown against the wall. Carver emerges from the room, telling his men to bring the body of Nick's father back to their lab. Nick cries in silence for his father as he watches Carver walk away. 10 years later, Carver watches a girl named Kira Hudson as she gets injected with a drug that would boost her powers but could also potentially kill her. Somewhere in the facility, a woman drops a glass marble on the floor as nurses lead her to a room. Soon after the injection, Kira starts having a seizure and ultimately flatlines. When the doctor moves closer to inspect Kira, she suddenly opens her eyes and attacks him. She takes the doctor's security pass and grabs a syringe from the tray before running out of the room. One of the doctors sounds the alarm, causing the doors at the facility to close and lock automatically. As Kira runs toward the exit, the glass marble rolls along the hallway, leading to the door. Before the door could close, the marble jams it, allowing Kira to leave the facility. Carver asks his right-hand man, Victor, to alert all the sniffers, who track down people with the object they once touched. In Hong Kong, Nick wakes up in his apartment practicing his power as a mover to control the dice telekinetically. He then goes to the park, intent on using his superhuman power to cheat on a dice game, but he fails to control the last die. Nick, who now owes $6,000 to the dealer, is beaten up and chased across the park due to the debt he has incurred. When he gets back home, two sniffs from Division wait for him at the apartment to ask him about a girl who had stolen something that belongs to the organization. After learning that Nick has been alone in the apartment for a while, the agents leave him, but they warn him not to bother running because they'll track him down again. Nick starts packing his clothes and grabs his gun, but he soon receives a strange call telling him to open his door and put his weapon down. When he opens it, Cassie, a 13-year-old watcher, barges into the room and heads straight to the refrigerator to take the chicken that she saw in her vision. Cassie then introduces herself and tells Nick that she's there to help him find $6 million. Cassie discloses that she's a second-generation watcher, and she can see glimpses of the future. However, she admits that she's not very good with her abilities, and she can get things wrong sometimes. Cassie claims that the money is in a suitcase carried by the girl being hunted down by Division. Nick, however, tells Cassie that he doesn't want to get involved with Division even if the money is real. Despite Nick's reluctance, Cassie is confident that he is going to help one way or another. Cassie contends that terrible things will happen if they don't find the girl in the suitcase. Cassie suddenly gets a vision and tells Nick that there are people after her in the market. As they flee, they come across the gang known as the Pop family. The Pop father asks Nick about the girl on the run from Division, saying his watcher daughter had already seen Nick with her. The Pop daughter points a gun at Cassie, telling her that she already knows how she dies. Cassie, confident that she wouldn't die at that moment, throws Nick's gun at her. Nick sends the Pop father and his henchmen flying to the wall and runs away with Cassie. A pair of bleeders, known for emitting an ear-splitting noise, scream at them, causing anything made of glass around the block to break. Pop Girl soon gets a vision of them running to the big fish tanks, so she tells the bleeders to intercept them there. The aquariums break from the bleeder screams, causing Cassie and Nick to slip. Nick tells Cassie to run as a bleeder screams at him. Not long after, Pop Girl gets a vision of Nick with Kira and Cassie, but she also sees Kira disappearing when she's on her own. So she points out to her father that they'll lose the girl if they kill Nick. At the pier, Kira wakes up on a boat, not knowing where she is. A man smoking a pipe ignores her as she looks around the boat. Inside the cabin, she sees 4100 and Nick written on a mirror with lipstick, so she takes her lipstick and writes down Nick and learns that the handwriting matches. That night, Cassie looks for Nick with the help of her powers. As she wanders around the city, she learns that Nick is in the care of a Stitch named Teresa, who can mend damaged tissue. Teresa heals Nick, saying she's only doing it because she owes Cassie's mother a favor. After Teresa leaves, Cassie gives Nick a lotus. She reveals that Division locked up her mother because they're afraid they can't control her. Cassie shows Nick a drawing of her vision, showing a woman being taken by Division agents. She warns that the agents that visited his apartment earlier will soon capture the girl with the suitcase. As they prepare to leave, Cassie shows him another drawing depicting their dead bodies, telling him that they'll both die in pursuit of the woman. As Cassie had foretold, agents Mac and Holden catch up to Kira on the streets. On their way to the airport, they stop by a cafe to let Kira use the toilet. Inside a bathroom stall, Kira uses her ability as a pusher to inject a false memory into Mac's mind, telling him that he has a brother who Holden killed. Mac furiously exits the toilet and shoots Holden in the back. When he realizes what he's done, he runs back to the bathroom to find Kira. When she emerges, she splashes soap in his eyes and tries running away, but Mac catches her. During the scuffle, Mac pulls out the beads on her bracelet. She scratches the back of his head and beats him with a portable bathroom sign. She finally knocks Mac unconscious with a kick to the head and leaves the toilet with his car keys and gun. While riding the taxi with Cassie, Nick practices his powers by lifting her sketch pad. When he sees a drawing of a cocktail glass, he tells the driver to go to a place called Club B. He notices a round object outside the glass, thinking it's an olive, but Cassie tells him that it's a bead. Nick suggests looking for the bead to see where it takes them. Meanwhile, Mac gives Kira's beads to Carver, telling him that he remembers everything about his supposed brother, but Carver reminds him that he never had one. Carver orders Mac to go home, saying he's relieved of his duties, but Mac assures him that he'll never let Kira push false memories into him again. Carver urges Mac to put a gun in his mouth and pull the trigger if he's willing to bet his life on it. Carver tells him not to worry as he inserts a false memory that Mac had already unloaded his firearm earlier. Mac puts the gun into his mouth and shoots himself as Carver and Victor walk through the alley without any concern for the dead agent. Carver tells Victor to spread Kira's beads to every sniff and watcher in the city until they find Kira. When Nick and Cassie arrive at Club B, they meet up with a shifter named Hook Waters, who can morph objects. They ask Hook to shift an object into a bead so they could use it to track down the suitcase. After transforming an earring into a shiny bead, Hook tells them to take it to a sniff named Emily. Upon their arrival at Emily's place, they show her the bead that Hook shifted for them, but they learn that she already has one of the real beads distributed by Division. After sniffing the object, Emily tells them that they'll find the girl they're looking for in Kwun Pier. At the pier, Kira uses her ability to convince a couple to give her a ride. But before she could get in the car, she hears Cassie and Nick arriving, so she fires her gun at them. Nick recognizes Kira and asks if she's the woman who Division is hunting down. However, Kira is angry at Nick for not searching for her when Division captured her, but Nick thought she left him because she stopped returning his calls. While walking along the streets, Kira stresses that Division is looking for the suitcase, but she doesn't know what's inside it. She discloses that she doesn't remember anything that happened in the past few days. Nick surmised that she had her memories wiped to make it harder for Division to find her. Kira notes that her memories of Nick are still intact. Cassie takes Nick aside to tell him that something has changed in the future because her mother is now with them in her vision of their death. She asks Nick to get rid of Kira because she's making the future worse and she doesn't have the suitcase, but Nick argues that they'll soon find the case with her. Cassie worries that Division will eventually capture Kira and take them along with her, so Nick suggests bringing a shadow to block the sniffers from tracking her down. Later that night, they meet up with a shadow named Pinky Stein, who asks for $10,000 a day for his services. He assures them that sniffs won't be able to track Kira down as long as she's standing within 20 feet of him. The three check into a motel as they wait for Kira to remember the location of the suitcase. When Cassie goes outside to get something to eat, Pinky leaves the room too, sensing that Nick needs to be alone with Kira. Nick lingers around the room until Kira pushes him to make him think that the bathroom is on fire. When he learns that Kira wanted him to go inside, Nick shuts the bathroom door as they begin to make love. Outside the hotel, Pop Girl approaches Cassie to remind her that she knows how Cassie will die. She flips her sketchbook showing her several drawings of a tiger and hints that Cassie can still change her fate by leaving Hong Kong. When she gets back to the motel room, Cassie warns Nick that Kira will get them all killed, including Pinky. When she mentions the Watcher, Pinky warns them that Watchers can still track them, and it will only be a matter of time before they catch up. Nick suggests splitting up the group to throw off the people chasing after them. He tells Kira to go with Pinky, promising her that he'll find her soon. Cassie is passed out from drinking alcohol, so they let her sleep, but she soon wakes up from a vision. Later on, Pop Girl and the Bleeders arrive at the room, but no one is there. After sending Kira off with Pinky, Nick asks Emily to track down Carver using the bead she got from Division. Nick finds Carver at a restaurant and telekinetically points a gun at him and Victor as he confronts them. Carver taunts Nick, saying he learned from the numerous Watchers he employs that Nick and his friends will die. Carver warns him that Kira will die soon without another injection, and Division is the only place she can get it. As Carver continues to taunt him, Nick's control of the gun starts to get weaker. Victor soon manifests his ability as a mover and wrests control of Nick's gun. Nick swiftly moves the table to pin down Victor to the wall. He then grabs a gun and runs away as Victor shoots him. He slides on the floor, firing at Victor, but Victor manages to block each bullet. Nick floats the gun toward Victor as they hide from each other. As Nick fires the weapon at Victor, a firearm is also slowly heading in Nick's direction. Victor's gun soon reaches him, but it is out of bullets. When Nick tries to run, Victor knocks him down by hitting his head with the firearm and tripping him with a chair. Victor throws Nick around the room, slamming him against the walls and ceiling. Carver gets out of the restaurant and finds Cassie drawing on her sketchpad. Cassie begs Carver not to make her do anything to herself, but Carver is not interested in hurting her because it will change the future, and he already likes it the way it is. Cassie warns him that killing Nick would also change their fate, so Carver goes back inside the restaurant to stop Victor from hurting Nick. When they go back to the hotel, Nick learns that Kira is starting to get sick. Nick lies by Kira's side and asks her what is in the suitcase. Kira discloses that it's a psychic steroid that will boost their abilities. Division wants her back because she's the only one who managed to survive the injection. Cassie draws a picture of herself holding Kira's shoe, so she comes inside the room and shows it to Nick. When she inspects it, she finds a key to a locker. Kira's condition suddenly worsens, so they immediately go to Emily's place to find out what the key unlocks. Cassie warns the group that Pop Girl will soon find out what they'll do because she sees their intentions. Nick tries to think of a plan that would keep the Watcher from knowing about their plans. Emily finds out that the locker is being shadowed. Cassie realizes that she wouldn't be able to draw the object if it's hidden. So she sketches on her pad and learns that an entire building is being shadowed to hide it from Watchers. Meanwhile, Pop Girl meets up with Teresa to ask for her help. Nick notes that people keep dying in Cassie's visions because Division and the Pop family track their every move. Nick asserts that they'll make the future unpredictable by not knowing their plans before they do it. Nick announces that he'll be writing letters giving each of the instructions, but they should only read it at the right moment. The last letter he writes will be for himself. He asks Pinky to find the man who wiped Kira's memory, so he could forget about writing the letters. Afterward, Nick asks Cassie to draw the exact size and shape of the suitcase and the syringe. Elsewhere, Pop Girl also comes up with her sketch of the objects. While Emily is sniffing the key, she discovers that a tape is covering the locker number. After finishing the drawings, Pop Girl, eager to please her father, tells him that the Division is looking for a syringe. She surmises that the drug will make them more powerful than Division. Nick tells Kira that she needs the medicine from Carver, knowing that they can't get it anywhere else. He gives Kira a red envelope and tells her that she should open it when she starts doubting the truth. After sending Kira off with Pinky, Nick distributes the remaining envelopes to Emily, Cassie, and Hook. After taking Kira to Carver, Pinky opens his envelope and meets up with Nick to let him know the location of Wo Chiang, the man who wiped Kira's memory. Nick asks Wo Chiang to erase his memory of the last 2 hours so that he would forget writing letters to his friends and himself. Nick drops money on the table and tells him to open a letter when he's done. When the clock hits 7:35, the group starts reading the letters. Nick asks Wo Chiang to go ahead with the memory wipe. Not long, Pop Girl loses her vision of Nick's future. Hook goes into the shadowed building, posing as a safety inspector. He heads to the lockers and opens the red envelope, which tells him that the particular locker he's looking for is 4100. As he opens it, an elderly woman fires a gun at him. Hook informs her that she doesn't have to shadow the building anymore, noting that Kira sent him. After taking a suitcase from the locker, Hook heads back to the motel room. He then shifts another suitcase to match the color of the one he took from the locker. Cassie brings a suitcase to Nick's apartment and takes out Nick's guns from the drawer. After Nick wakes up from the memory wipe, he opens the envelope telling him to go home. When he reaches the apartment, he finds the suitcase inside, but Teresa attacks him. After looking at the contents of the suitcase, she gives it to the Pop bleeders. A bleeder tries to scream at Nick, but Teresa stops him, saying their sister promised that Nick would die slowly. Meanwhile, Nick sees the gun stashed by Cassie and telekinetically points them at Teresa, asking her to heal him. When they deliver the suitcase to Pop Father, he finds the syringe, but it changes to a bottle of soy sauce as soon as he hands it over to their client. Pop Girl tells her bleeder brothers that the real syringe is in a building. Meanwhile, Carver tries to give Kira an immunosuppressant that will save her life. Kira, however, resists the injection, so Carver assures her that they're not trying to hurt her. Carver claims that Kira is actually a Division agent, and she volunteered to be injected with the drug. Carver shows Kira her ID at the organization and points out that she only eluded them because of her training. Carver uses his ability, claiming to help her remember. Cassie still worries about her supposed impending death, so Nick advises her to start walking, not think about where she's going so Watchers can't keep track of her. Nick tells Cassie to hide once she comes across a safe place. Cassie goes to the subway and arrives at an intersection. Then, she covers her eyes and spins before she continues walking in an unknown direction. With Pop Girl tracking her every movement, Cassie ends up in an attic of a Chinese restaurant. She sees boxes with a tiger logo and looks at her own drawing depicting herself being attacked by a tiger. Soon, Pop Girl arrives, pointing a gun at her and complaining that Cassie made her look like a fool in front of her family. Suddenly, Wo Chiang appears behind Pop Girl and wipes her memory. As she leaves the attic, Wo Chiang tells Cassie that her mother is proud of her. Nick calls Carver to make a deal with him, saying he'll surrender the drug for Kira. When he goes to the meeting place, he sees Kira in good health, asking him for the suitcase. Kira reminds Nick of the first time he told Kira he loves her, but she claims that it was a planted memory. Kira claims that they met for the first time the previous day. Although Nick remembers running cons with her at Coney Island, Kira asserts that he's never been there. Nick soon receives a call from Hook, telling Nick that he should take the drug. Hook then asks Nick to pass the phone to Carver to tell him that he'll have to let Kira and Nick live if he wants the case. Victor and Carver go to the location of the suitcase, taking Nick and Kira along with them. When they arrive, Victor knocks out Nick and puts him inside the trunk. After taking the suitcase from the locker, the Pop family arrives with their henchmen. With numerous guns pointed at them, Victor hurls sacks of colored powder against the henchmen and blocks their bullets to allow Carver to escape. As the men keep firing at them, Victor throws two thugs off the building. One of the men hits Carver's car, damaging the trunk and allowing Nick to get out. Nick makes his way up to the lockers armed with two guns. A group of men catches up to Kira, but she uses her ability to manipulate them. When Nick calls out to Kira, the group protects her and points their gun at Nick. Victor hurls Nick down the stairs and sends him flying across the room. As they engage in hand-to-hand combat, Victor blocks the bullets flying in their direction. They exchange punches until Nick knocks him down. A bleeder arrives and screams at them, so Victor uses a sharp bamboo stick to stab him in the neck. Pop Father, enraged by the death of his son, kills Victor with his sonic scream. As Nick's ears start to bleed, he sends the scaffolding crashing down on Pop Father. Carver notices Kira manipulating a group of men, so he tells her that he's impressed by her abilities under the booster drug. He tells her to march the men off the roof so they could finally leave. Nick, however, stops Kira, telling her that Carver is pushing her. Nick tries to attack Carver, but he blocks the attack and manipulates him into jumping off the building. However, Nick turns around and takes the syringe from Carver. When he sticks the needle into his arm, Carver warns him that it will kill him. Nick injects himself with the substance and starts writhing in pain until he becomes unconscious. After Carver and Kira leave, Cassie arrives at the site and wakes him up. After taking the real suitcase from a bin, she tells Nick that Division will do whatever it takes to keep the drug from getting into the wrong hands. Cassie says she still can't decide whether she'd trade the syringe for her mother. When Nick asks her what was in the syringe that he injected into his veins, Cassie discloses that it's 9 dragon soy sauce. On a plane ride back to Division headquarters, Kira sees the envelope that Nick prepared for her. When she looks at the envelope's content, she sees a photo of herself with Nick at Coney Island, with a note telling Kira to kill Carver. As Carver sleeps, Kira stares at him, instructing him to put the gun in his mouth and pull the trigger. Soon after Carver opens his eyes, he shoots himself. Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.